Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another daily movie review. Spooky season continues, and today we got another kind of out of left field, no pun intended, movie to talk about. Today we're going to be talking about the 2013 film A Field in England, directed by Ben Wheatley, written by Amy Jump. The film stars Julian Barrett, Peter Ferdinando, Richard Glover, Ryan Pope, Reese Shearsmith, Michael Smiley, Sarah D, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: amid the Civil War in the 17th century England, a group of deserters flee from battle through an overgrown field. Captured by an alchemist, the men are forced to help him search to find a hidden treasure that he believes is buried in the field. Yeah, so this is another Hamilton Books pickup. Like I've talked about a few times, they have these old, now defunct Draft House label movies for super cheap. And I've been wanting to see this for years. I'm a big Ben Wheatley fan. He always does interesting stuff, even when I don't love the movie. His first couple movies are probably still my favorite. He did this movie called Kill List, which is this weird like hitman, a cult movie. It kind of has a Wicker Man vibe to it, like a really over the top violent Wicker Man. And then also his follow up to that was Sightseers, which is kind of this dark comedy, really crazy movie. You know what, I would don't even look up what Sightseers is about. When I saw it, I didn't really know what it was about. I just knew who directed it, and I was like, oh, check it out. Very pleasantly surprised. Great movie. So yeah, I'd been hotly, and for some reason, I just never got around to watching A Field in England. I don't know why. I saw the things that came out after it. I saw High Rise. I saw Free Fire. I'm looking forward to Rebecca, his I think kind of sort of remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca. I don't think it's exactly a remake, but inspired by more likely. That comes out in a couple weeks. So I'd seen those, but I'd never seen A Field in England. I don't know why. Like it was on the top of my list when it came out, and I guess it just fell through the cracks. You know, I'd heard that it was kind of a challenging movie in the sense it's kind of experimental. It's maybe even a little hard to follow. So maybe at the time, like I just was never in the right mood. You know, this time buying a movie will really force you to watch something. You're like, well, I guess I made the investment. I guess I got to fucking do it now. And coming out of it, I'm glad that I did. Now, this is a movie that is definitely not for everybody. It's not. I don't even know. It just doesn't have a clear structure, a clear story. Character motivations are nebulous, to say the best. It is more of a kind of horror of the mind's psychological terror. It's about paranoia. And the film basically works as a series of escalations into intense, extreme paranoia by the end of the movie. Kind of like breaks out like the full freak out mode by the end of the movie. And it's sort of just slowly kind of building there through these weird character interactions. And it's these guys, like it says, they're trying to escape. They're trying to desert battle. And they're in this giant field and they get caught by these other guys. And that's it. And then that's all the characters. There's no other characters. They're just in a giant field and they come upon like mushrooms. So they're all tripping balls, which I learned was apparently something that was not super uncommon. They actually used to do that, and they would use it against their enemies in battle and stuff. They would crush up mushrooms, like dried mushrooms, and they'd blow it in people's faces. I was kind of surprised. It was a cool thing to learn. I learned a little bit of something from Ben Wheatley's A Field in England. I'm actually really looking forward to listening to the audio commentary. I haven't got a chance to yet because I bet you he gets into all the historical details. But yeah, so it was kind of, even for me, like, and I was paying very close attention, closed the laptop, cell phone plugged in the kitchen, full attention, watching A Field in England. And even I was having a hard time. And a lot of times, you know, a lot of people complain about like, oh, I can't understand because of the accents, yada, yada. This is the first time I had to, like, usually it doesn't happen, but I had to turn on the subtitles. I was just like, I really can't understand them because they're like mumbling and it's really kind of naturalistically shot and a lot of, you know, very naturalistic performances. And they're kind of speaking sometimes away from the camera or mumbling or just like the ruffling of their clothes and the field, and it's just there's so much going on in terms of like sensory data. I had to turn on those subtitles, man, just to make sure I was like understanding what the fuck was going on. And even then, I was still a little confused. There are some great performances though. Michael Smiley is one of my favorite character actors. He's this northern dude from Northern Ireland. He's also in a few other Ben Wheatley movies. He was in Free Fire. He was in Kill List, what I mentioned earlier. The Lobster. If you've ever seen The Lobster, great fucking dark comedy. He actually kind of got his start with Edgar Wright in his TV show Spaced back in the late 90s. That's like one of his first credits is actually from that. He plays Tyres O'Flaherty. He plays this this parcel delivery guy that's also really into raves. Very funny, very cool stuff. He's great in this. He's actually, I would say, probably the standout performance. The real centerpiece of the movie is his performance. He plays the very, very ominous O'Neill, and he's kind of like terrorizing some of these guys, and he's trying to force them to like look for this treasure in this field, and he believes that one of them knows where it is, and it's the man of God, and he's going to challenge God, and he's going to challenge this man's beliefs and make him take some fucking mushrooms and crawl across the fucking field and find his treasure. That's kind of, it has this weird sense of almost like a cult in it, even though it's not directly that, but it does have that sense where, because you feel like it is kind of like magic versus God in a certain sense. If there is something that I pulled out of, and this was my first time watching it, like I said, if there was a theme that I pulled out of the movie, it was that. It was kind of these two ideological things kind of butting heads. The secular witchcraft stuff, more secularly driven, and then the notion of God and how this can create a problem for men. And that's just a very vague blind reading. I know. I apologize, but it's kind of that's really what I took from it. Like, it seemed like that's kind of what the movie was kind of getting at a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. Like I said, looking forward to listening to the audio commentary for this one and like really diving in to see kind of what was on Ben Wheatley's mind during this movie. Like, what were the subtexts that he was trying to build into the film? Like I said, I think that was the most clear thing. It's something like man versus God type of stuff, or different types of beliefs clashing, kind of this old ancient world versus kind of this more quote unquote modern notions of Christian God. You know, the old gods fighting the new gods type deal. It's shot in a very interesting way. Like I said, it's very naturalistic, but it's got this beautiful kind of inkwell black and white photography that is absolutely gorgeous. And if I was to say anything about this movie that really actually stood out, is how visually arresting it is and how beautifully they use things like shadow, how it casts some of the characters. There's some fantastic shots of Michael Smiley's O'Neill, just like his whole face just black, just deep in shadow, but you can see like his pilgrim's hat, and it's just very provocative imagery. There is no soundtrack as far as I can remember. I don't remember a score in this movie. I don't think there is one. No, it says there's music. Must be very sparing. I'm trying to like remember it. I feel really bad. It did not leave a huge impression on me. If it's a pronounced part of the movie, then it did not leave a big impression on me. Maybe it just kind of blended into the sound design, because there's a lot of sound design in the movie. It seems very like built that way in terms of like just the sounds of the field. Really, the field itself actually feels a little bit like a character, and a lot of that is through the sound design and how the characters interact with it, and the crunching of the grass and the scraping of walking across it, and like it always feels like a presence because of that. And also just the nature of the field and the different textures and different kind of geographical permutations of the field, like the rocky part, the soft part, the part where there's brambles, like all that kind of stuff. It's shot really well. I really loved the director of photography, a guy named Laurie Rose. He's done a few Ben Wheatley movies. He did Stan and Ollie, which I actually watched a couple years ago. He's doing his new movie, Ben Wheatley's new movie, Rebecca. That it really stood out to me. It's impressive, especially because considering that they did this like on the cheap, on the quick. I think it said, if I remember correctly, I was looking at the trivia, it said they shot this in 12 days. Which, makes sense. You watch it, you can definitely sense that maybe they shot it quickly. Not in a bad way, though. I'm just saying, like, there isn't a lot. There's no reason for it to take them forever, especially if they knew the material. I would see, this is one of these things. I wonder how much of this stuff is kind of figured out on the day or how tight the script was. That would be really interesting to figure out. Probably would have been a good idea if I did that before I recorded this, but, you know, we got to make the donuts. We got to get it done. Okay? I don't just have time willy-nilly to be watching movies fucking twice. You bastards. This video is going to get like fucking 10 views. Can't be doing that. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't appreciate you 10 people, but I don't got time. I don't got time. But yeah, it seems like, cause it definitely seems like a mixture of like improvised scenes and scripted material. I'm curious if they like kind of worked out how to go about things on the day, because you do got to kind of get a sense of kind of the spontaneity in the movie. Like, it doesn't feel well formed sometimes, and I think that is, you know, I was kind of talking about when I first started, it does not have like a structure that is easy to follow. So I'd be very curious to see if they had like an outline or if they had a tight script. I'd be very curious to know that. So I suppose I'll find out at some point. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, a bunch of links in the description: Facebook, Instagram, my personal Twitter, Dan's Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for these daily videos, you go ahead and throw that in the comments section, and I will put it on that list, or I'll at least think about it seriously. Good night.